Heyo, John Lee Dumas here of Entrepreneur on Fire, the #1 business podcast, and you are listening to the How to Quit Working show by Jeff Steinman, where you'll hear insights, stories, and inspiration from successful entrepreneurs who quit their job and started a business. Prepare to ignite.
And because they care about you, and because they want to see you be successful, they want to head you off from what they perceive as just driving over the edge of a cliff.
This is the How to Quit Working show. Jeff Steinman believes entrepreneurship is the only true path to freedom. That's why he created the How to Quit Working show, where you'll hear stories, insights, and inspiration from lifestyle fanatics who left their soul-sucking 9-to-5 job forever. Now, here's your host, author, entrepreneur, and ultimate lifestyle fanatic, Jeff Steinman.
Hello and welcome to the How to Quit Working show. We've got a great topic today, and the topic we're going to talk about today is how to deal with friends and family who do not support you in your entrepreneurial pursuits. This is a huge topic. This is something that holds a lot of people back. And as I said, I always base the Friday show on the questions and comments and feedback and things, the themes that I see throughout the week. And this was a theme. I had this conversation with 3 or 4 different people this week about in various situations about how do you deal with the friends and family that don't support, and really what it comes down to is don't understand your entrepreneurial desires. So we're going to talk about kind of 3 main areas that you need to focus on, as well as answering a really cool question, a great question that we got from one of our How to Working Facebook group members, because I posed this question on the Facebook group this morning before I started recording this to see what question, I put the topic on the group to see what questions people in the group had about this topic. And I got one really great question from Elizabeth Cody that I'm going to answer towards the latter part of this podcast. So if you want to be part of that group, go over to howtoquitworking.com/group. That will shoot you over to Facebook, and then you will be taken right to the Facebook group where you can interact with me and other people just like you who are looking to quit their job and start a business and get lots of great support. Because if your family is not supporting you, one of the things I'm going to tell you on the show is find people who do support you, and the How to Quit Working group is a great place to do that. So go to howtoquitworking.com/group, click on join group, and then you'll be accepted in right away, and you can start interacting in the conversation and being part of the content that we create here on the How to Quit Working show. Now, the other thing that's going to happen towards the end of this show is the first ever session, or the first ever tip from the new How to Quit Working coach, Heather Osgood. She's going to be joining us every Friday with a tip about entrepreneurship that is coming from her 16 years of experience starting multiple successful businesses, even selling one. So every Friday, you're going to get an awesome nugget from Heather, and today is the first one. She's going to be talking about lifestyle, and I'm so excited about this new segment on the How to Quit Working show. It's so cool. So not before, but let's just jump right in. What to do when you have friends and family around you that don't support you in your entrepreneurial endeavors. Now, the first thing that I want to say, I kind of got 3 main points that I want to cover here. And the first one is that, if you've read my book or any of the stuff that I've put out, you know that I feel very strongly that you have to eliminate negativity from your life completely, like all negativity in every form. Now, I know you can't always do it, but you have control in most cases of like 95% of the negativity. You can eliminate a ton of it, and you got to eliminate whatever you can. So starting from the premise that you've got to eliminate negativity is number one. And number one is understanding their viewpoint, right? So understanding the viewpoint of your friends and family who do not support you in your entrepreneurial endeavors. And what you have to is that, and let me back up a second, because the reason that you have to be understanding is because if you're not understanding, you're going to be resentful. And a negative, resentful person is not going to be a successful entrepreneur. You have to be a positive, upbeat, happy, excited person to be successful as an entrepreneur. So you can't create that negativity. And one way to eliminate any negativity that can come from your unsupportive friends and family is to understand them. Understand where they are coming from. All of us probably listening to this show, unless you're like some of those really, really young entrepreneurs that started when they were very, very young and were never exposed to another viewpoint. Everybody listening here is probably familiar with those thoughts that are going through your unsupportive friends and family's heads, right? So they're thinking things like, the way that a human being makes money and supports themselves is to get a job. They believe that the only way to make money and to support yourself is to get a job. So when they see you pursuing your entrepreneurial endeavors, what they're seeing is they're seeing you eliminating the only possible way that you could possibly make money and support yourself. And what that really means is put food in your mouth and be able to survive and have a place to live. So what they're seeing, it's so important in business to be able to step back and look at, what is somebody else seeing? We all know what we're seeing. It's right in front of us. It's in our brains, and we can see it and we can process it as we do. But it's really important to be able to look at what somebody else is seeing and understand the other person's perspective. So again, what they're seeing is they are seeing you throwing away and giving up your only means to support yourself. Now, we know that that is not accurate. What they believe is not accurate. But it's what they believe, and it's what they see, and it's the perspective that they have. They see you and they're saying, gosh, you are just giving everything up. You're throwing everything away. You are creating a situation where you're not going to be able to support yourself, and there's no way that you're going to be successful unless you're one of the many lucky people. People that don't have an entrepreneurial mindset also have the belief that you have to be really, really lucky to be successful as an entrepreneur or successful at anything. So they have those beliefs that are very different than yours. So you're seeing possibility and you're seeing opportunity, and they're seeing doom and gloom. And because they care about you and because they want to see you be successful, and what successful means to them is very different than what it means to you. That's another important aspect of this. Because they want to see you be successful, they want to head you off from what they perceive as just driving over the edge of a cliff. They're seeing you driving in a car, and they're seeing a cliff, and they see you going right over it. And that's how they perceive it. So the first thing that you have to do is you have to realize that how difficult it is for them. It's very difficult for them to watch you doing something that they believe is destroying your life, and maybe destroying the life of your family and destroying the lives of people around you. They are perhaps afraid that you are going to become a burden on them, right? Because they may not believe that you're going to be able to make money. So they might believe that you're going to want to move in with them, or they might believe that you're going to want to borrow money. And that's what they see. So you've got to recognize that they are seeing a very different picture than you are. And you understand, because you probably had that mentality at some point. I know I did, right? When I was, in my early 20s and somebody said that they were going to go off and start a business, I would have thought they were crazy, right? But it took a long time for me to come around and realize that, no, that's actually not the case. And actually people do this every single day, and it can be done successfully, and it doesn't. Luck comes into play, but that's another topic. But you don't have to have some gigantic stroke of luck that's like 1 in a million. Anybody can do this, and we understand that, but they don't understand that. So it's important to understand their perspective, and also realize that when you go off and become an entrepreneur, you become a part of a very small sliver of society, right? You become very much in the minority. You become one of a very select few people. You're doing something that most people don't do. You never get anywhere in life or in the world or in anything by following the herd. That doesn't get you anywhere except where the herd is going, which is usually a pretty mediocre place. So if you want mediocrity, follow the herd because they'll take you there. The herd will always take you to mediocrity, but they won't take you to a place of greatness. They won't take you to a place of having everything that you've ever wanted out of life and having a happier and more successful life than most people do. So realize that you're breaking away from the herd and you're doing something very, very different. So realize how unique you are and realize the perspective that other people have when they're looking at what you're doing. So it's all about understanding and understand their perspective so that you don't end up resenting them and bringing all of that negativity into your head and into your mind and into your life. So that's number one, understand. Number two is this sort of twofold part. Now we're getting more into the practicals, right? The practical things that you have to do to deal with this situation, because yes, you understand and that's great, but now you got to take some practical action. And that is what I call isolate and insulate. So you have to isolate and insulate. And there are two different things there. And the first one is isolate. And what isolate means is, sometimes you have to make the really tough decisions of just cutting it off. There are some people that you have to limit contact with. You have to limit the amount of time that you allow them to be around you and to influence you. And that's what I call isolation. And that's a tough decision. And it's one you have to make it on a case-by-case basis. I can tell you that I have eliminated, hard to say, probably dozens of people from my life. I'm probably more aggressive when it comes to the isolation than is necessary for many people, but I've approached it very aggressively. I've very, very aggressively isolated people, and I don't have any regrets for having done that, and won't for a second pretend that is easy. I will not pretend that that's easy. It's not. It's hard. It's hard to eliminate people and to cut people out of your life. And I wish I had more advice on that. But what it ultimately comes down to is there are times when you simply have to just end relationships. And I think of one really good friendship. Two probably really good friendships that were necessary to end somewhat dramatically and not in the best of terms and not in the most amicable way. So those are some difficult decisions that you have to make, and it just comes down to you have to want it more. You have to want to be successful more than you want to cling on to relationships that don't serve you. And that's really what it comes down to. And like I said, there's just not a lot that I can say about how to make it easier or how to make it happen, other than to just say you've got to make that decision. And when you look at, I think that a lot of times we might care for that person, or we might not want to hurt that person. But I think you have to step back and look at, well, if I'm going to be the best person that I can be, then I can have a positive influence on way more people than I can have if I play smaller and continue to salvage this one person's feelings, right? And relationships, whether it's friendships or relationships with family members or romantic relationships, they end all the time. They end all the time in this world. People cease to be friends. People cease to speak to family members. People cease to be in romantic relationships together. And people get through that and people survive it all the time. All the time, people survive end relationships and they move on with their lives. So not easy, but you got to do it. That's isolation. The second one is insulation, because you do make decisions sometimes when you say, okay, this person maybe isn't serving me in the best of ways in my entrepreneurial endeavors, but I have made the decision. Maybe it's a parents, I think, is the most common case where we turn to insulation rather. So, you make the decision. This is a personal decision. I don't judge your decision either way, but you make the personal decision. Let's say, for example, your parents are not supportive. They think you're throwing your life away. They're putting all kinds of negativity up in your face, and it's really difficult, but you have made the decision that you're not going to isolate. You are going to keep them in your life. So then you have to insulate. And insulation takes a couple of different forms. The one form is kind of limiting the contact and the topics that you talk about, right? So that might mean keeping the conversations down to once a week as opposed to 3 times a week. Or it might mean keeping the visits or the dinners or whatever you do together with these people. It might mean keeping those more limited and time boxed, right? So I have a family member that I find it helps to time box the amount of time that I spend with that person. In other words, it's going to be this block of X number of hours, and I'll be focused for that amount of time. And then when that end of that time block comes, then I kind of go into isolation for a while. And then you can open that up, and that allows you to kind of control your own emotions and your own reactions a little bit better. So that's one way to do the insulation, right? Is to just sort of limit it. The other thing is limiting the topics that you talk about. Maybe you just have a conversation with this person and you say, I know that you don't agree with what I'm doing here, and but I'm committed, and this is what I'm doing, and it probably isn't useful for us to talk about this anymore. It's probably not useful for us to continue to go back and forth and argue and disagree with each other. That's probably damaging our relationship. So why don't we have a conversation about something that we agree about? Maybe that's a hobby or a sports team or other family members, the grandkids, another thing that you can bond over, and another thing that you can have conversations about. This is actually one of my favorite techniques for dealing with these people and I have a number of friends that I made the decision of, no, I'm not going to isolate, but I am going to insulate. And one of the things that I think is really useful is when you find that other thing that you bond over, that other thing that you enjoy talking about with that person, and that other thing that you have in common, and you spend your time talking about that thing. And that's really nice. And I really enjoy that because for humans, and I personally find this for myself a lot, we have to have variety. We have to have different things that we talk about. We have to talk about, and we have to have different things involved in our lives. And we have to, we like to be able to go from one topic to another topic and just have different things that we talk about, that we do, that we work on, and so forth. And to be able to introduce that variety, right? Maybe there's a friend that you can just talk about your favorite sports team with, which gives you the chance to sort of disconnect from your business and your entrepreneurial things that you're thinking about, and lets you just have some fun chatting about something totally different. So, changing the topic is another way to sort of insulate and not have to let that negativity and let that lack of encouragement, it's not lack of encouragement, it's actually discouragement, but to not let that affect you by just switching the topic over to something different. And then another thing that is important, in fact, it's necessary, it's very necessary that you develop the ability to do this, but it's a blocking or a walling off. It's almost like you create this, what did they had on Star Trek, back in the day, they had what they called the cloaking device, I think it was, right? And nobody knows how it actually worked, but it was this magical thing that went around the ship that kept stuff from hitting it. So you've got to have your own cloaking device, right? And all of these things work together, because really what makes the cloaking device work is to go back to number one and understand where they're coming from, and understand that, yeah, they've got these opinions. They have these opinions that they are expressing, but I realize that they're coming from a different place and from someone with a different idea about how the world works, with different goals, and they're just not relevant to me. So why would I let them in? Why would I let them affect me? Right? So understand where it's coming from and hear it, process it. You don't even have to process it. You can just hear it, and you can just kind of let it bounce off of you. Right now, in my daily life, I actually get a lot of this. Right? Because how many times are you in a situation where you're asked what you do? Right? What do you do for a living? Right? Whether it's at a cocktail party or making small talk with somebody at the gym or the grocery store or people that you meet. It happens all the time. And I say, well, I'm the author of How to Quit Working, and I have this show and this online platform and this. And what happens a lot is that you get those people who are really confused. And they're like, you tell people to quit their jobs? So I have to deal with that a lot, right? And I've gotten to the point, and it hasn't always been that way, but I've gotten to the point where it really rolls off. I mean, I kind of chuckle at it even, but you're always going to encounter people who are not going to be supportive of what you're doing. And you really have to be able to understand their perspective and understand where they're coming from, and realize that you have information that they don't have. You have goals that they don't share. You have a whole different idea about the way the world works and what success really means that they don't share. And therefore, the things that they say are just not going to they're not going to work, right? It's a square peg in a round hole kind of a thing. Their comments just aren't compatible with you and what you're looking for in life. So they're like irrelevant, you know? It's almost like, I almost think of it like, you know, when you're in a grocery store and they come on the PA and they say, there's a 2012 Ford Taurus, blue with license plates, XYZ, ABC, and it's got its lights on. Well, there's a couple problems with that, because I don't think they made the Ford Taurus in 2012, and most cars of that age, the lights go off automatically. So it's a terrible metaphor, but you know, work with me here. So when you hear that announcement, the first thing that you hear is that it's a 2012 Ford Taurus. And you don't drive a 2012 Ford Taurus, so you quit listening. You instantly realize that announcement is not applicable to you, right? You know, if you go to a restaurant and they say, "I'm sorry, we're out of chicken," and you were going there for a steak, you don't care. It just bounces right off of you. And that's the way that you have to let that feedback work, right? Those things that you hear from the people that have a whole different idea about the world and about what really matters in life, is their comments are not relevant to you. Those comments are for someone else. They are not relevant, so they can't possibly upset you. They can't possibly affect you in any way, shape, form, or fashion. And I know that is most challenging when it is those folks that you've chosen to insulate from, but you just got to disconnect the emotion. So number one is understanding their perspective and understanding where they're coming from, and that's a totally different place than where you are coming from. Number two is isolate and insulate. So you got to get rid of some people completely, and other people you have to figure out ways to deal with their perspectives and their comments and the things that they're saying to you. Number three, this is my favorite, because this is the one that shuts everybody down and it makes it all irrelevant. You ready? get results. Get results. When you get results, it makes everyone's comments irrelevant, and it makes the comments kind of go away. It makes the objections go away. And then something else happens. Sometimes it's jealousy, right? Sometimes it's jealousy. Sometimes it is negativity that comes in a different form once you've achieved results. Sometimes it's resentment. Sometimes it's statements of, well, you must just be lucky, or you must have had some ace in the hole or something like that. You get those kind of negative comments as well. But for the most part, it really shuts down the objections, right? Once these people, because remember, we go back to the first one, all they want is they just want to make sure that you're okay. They just want to make sure that you're able to feed yourself and clothe yourself and give yourself shelter. But when you show them that you can indeed do that, that really kind of shuts it down. It really, really shuts it down. Now, one of the things, I actually talked about this on the Solopreneur Hour with Michael O'Neill, and that aired yesterday. One of the biggest reasons that we get these objections from our friends and family is because we have taken multiple runs at entrepreneurship and we failed. We've tried these things and it didn't work, and it didn't work, and it didn't work. And we've tried the MLM thing and that didn't work. We've tried this and that didn't work. We tried that and that didn't work. And of course, it didn't work means you gave up too soon. That's always what it means. That's a whole nother show. But they've seen you try multiple things, and they've seen you, we know it's not failure, but they think it's failure. They view it as failure. They've seen you try and fail multiple times. You've got to show them that you can be successful. You have to show them that you can do it, and that's by getting results. And I know, and the fact of the matter is, I put these in this order for a reason, because you do have to first understand, you have to then isolate and insulate, and then you have to get results. And it's the only way to deal with the objections from the friends and family is to approach it that way. So the results are really, really important. And that's everything that we talk about here. And like I said, I put them in the order that I did because, frankly, I don't think you can get the results unless you do number one and number two. You can't get the results unless you start with that understanding of where the objections are coming from. And then number two, isolate and insulate from them. And then the results will come if you have successfully done those first two. Now, I want to take a question from Elizabeth Cody, and she asked such a great question. She said, what do I do about family members who are small business owners who tell me I'm not ready? All right, so Elizabeth has a family member who is a small business owner who is saying, you know what, Elizabeth, I just don't think you're ready. Well, the answer is a couple of things. I think the first thing that you have to do is you have to go back to that person and you have to say, thank you very much for that feedback. Could you tell me a little bit more? Could you help me understand what you mean by that? And could you tell me maybe what could I do to get ready? All right, and then you'll take that person's feedback, and then what you'll do with it is you will apply the insulation, right? Because you're going to have to look at that feedback really critically, and you're going to have to look at it really objectively and without any emotion whatsoever. So you've got to eliminate all emotion from this discussion. You cannot feel anything, and you just have to look at facts, and you have to say, okay, well, this person is saying I'm not ready because of this. And then you have to really objectively evaluate that feedback, because that person might have some really, really good feedback. That person might say, I just don't feel like you are good enough with numbers. I don't know. I'm just making this up. I don't feel like you're good enough with numbers. Well, that might mean, hey, you need to get a little bit better with numbers. It might also be, and this is actually kind of more of what I suspect might be the case in this situation, is it might be that this person is looking at you from an outdated perspective. One of the things that I learned in corporate is that it's very hard to change people's initial ideas of you. In other words, when you get a job, and maybe you get a job in a junior capacity, right? So like you're just a beginning entry level, whatever it is. It's much harder to move up in that company than it is to take those skills to a different company and move in at a higher level. And what ultimately happens is that people in that company get stuck mentally on you being that junior beginner kind of a person, and before you know it, it's been 20 years and they still view you as that junior entry level type of a person, which is why entrepreneurship is so great. But I don't have to sell you guys on that. And I think the same thing happens with our family, right? They tend to, particularly people who've known us since we were small children, right? I really believe that a lot of that baggage, and this is maybe one of the downsides of knowing someone for such a long time, is that there's baggage in there. They might be thinking of you. They might be thinking of you from 5 years ago, or from 3 years ago, or from 15 or 20 years ago. All right, there might be some outdated things that are going on, and it could be that they just have some old things that are going on in their head. But it also could be that maybe you haven't talked to that person enough, and you haven't educated them on, hey, I've learned these things, and I've gotten much better at this, and this, and this, and this. And now that's why I really think that I'm much better suited to do this now. So it might be a really good opportunity to take that feedback that you get from them and open up a conversation about it, and maybe get some really great support from this person. It also could be that you decide that this person's input and feedback just isn't valid or accurate. And that's where you get to insulate yourself from it. So I think you got to let all the emotion go, Elizabeth. Let it completely go. Look at it completely objectively and say, hey, does this person have a valid point? Maybe they do. And maybe that's something that I need to work on. Or maybe they don't. Maybe they don't. And you've got to have the confidence to be able to say, you know what? Nope, that's not what I'm doing. I don't agree. That ain't going to happen. And then move on. And I could do another show on this, actually. In fact, one of Heather's upcoming topics is about confidence. But I think that confidence is so extremely important in business, because you've got to be able to look at situations and look at things and say, you know what? Somebody's saying I should do this, but I disagree, and I'm not going to do it. I'm going to move on. I'm going to do my own thing, because you got to have that level of confidence. So, Elizabeth, I hope that helps. Thank you for your participation in the group. And as I said, if you want to jump into the group and contribute questions to this show or any other show, go to howtoquitworking.com/group. Now, it's time to jump into our weekly tip from Heather. So, Heather, take it away.
Hello, How to Quit Working community. I am so thrilled to be with you here today. I hope that you're all having a wonderful day today. And today I'm here to talk to you a little bit about lifestyle. Now, I realize that lifestyle is a huge topic and can mean any variety of different things. But today I want to talk to you a little bit about how your lifestyle is affecting your ability to conquer your entrepreneurial dreams. So what I mean by lifestyle when I talk about that is, what is it that is feeding into you based on where you live, based on your house, based on your spending, that is really kind of keeping you captive. So I believe that when you're talking about starting your very first company, that you really need to look at the ability to contract in order to expand. So part of the reason why all of us want to be our own bosses, and part of the reason why all of us want to start companies, is because we have these dreams, we have these aspirations of really having kind of the lifestyle that we want, of being able to work the hours that we want to work, of being able to make the money that we believe that we deserve. But really, in order to get to those lofty dreams and those lofty aspirations, we really have to look at where we're currently at. So I believe with lifestyle that you need to address a couple of things. First, I think you really, really need to look at where you're living. Living expenses are huge. And when I say take a look at where you're living, I think that you need to first start with what state do you live in. There are obviously several states out there in the US, and you could choose to live in any of them. I happen to live in California, which is one of probably the most expensive states in the union to live in, but I also love it, and I'm surrounded by my friends and my family here. But there are lots and lots of places throughout the country that I have, and my husband and I have looked at moving to simply because the cost of living is so much cheaper. So first, evaluate the state you're living in. Next, I think it's really important to evaluate the community that you're living in within that state. So obviously, California is a huge state. There's lots of different communities to live in California. I happen to live on the beach in California, which is awesome and I love it, but it's also extremely expensive. There are lots of other places in the state that we could live that would be a lot cheaper. So within that state, what community are you living in? Number 3 on the list is the actual community within that town that you're living in. Are you living in a community that is really, really an expensive community, or are you living in a community that maybe is not where you'd like to live, down the road, but currently is going to save you the money that you need? And then take a look at your house. Are you living in a palatial mansion? I think that in America, we have these thoughts that we need to live in a 3,000 square foot house. Is that what you really need right now? And the reason I'm talking about these things is because your house expense can be anywhere from 25 to 40% of your monthly budget. And if you are at the upper end of that budgeting scale, and really you're spending a ton on your house, if you're thinking about trying to make the transition, if you're thinking about trying to quit your job and start a business, maybe in order to expand, in order to hit those dreams that you want, it's a good idea to contract right now. Maybe it's a good idea to downsize a little bit, get into a house or a community that maybe is a little bit more affordable so that you can live that lifestyle that you want, that you can have those dreams further down the road. And when I talk about further down the road, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, not 20 or 50 years, but just for a short period of time, really looking at that. The next thing I think that is really important for you to look at is your spending. What are you spending money on? If you're really thinking about quitting your job and really investing a lot in a new business, it's important to really consider those expenses that you have. And I think as Americans, we have a tendency to really overspend. So if you really analyze what you're spending your money on, how often you're going out to eat, what kinds of food you are making, where you're spending that dollar, whether you're a shopaholic and you have to have the latest brands and trends and everything brand new, if you have to have a new car every 3 or 4 years, really examine that and think about, do I have to have that right now? Or am I willing to make a sacrifice? Am I willing to kind of scale down for the time being so that I can position myself for real success? And the other thing that I just really want to bring up is debt. Are you living in a place where you're surrounded by debt? Because if you have a ton of debt, you're never going to be successful. You're never going to be able to have that momentum to really project yourself forward and really hit those goals. And so today I just want you to think about your lifestyle. Think about, do you have the opportunity right now while you currently are employed to downsize and then really devote all of your attention and all of your resources to creating a very profitable business so that you can live a lifestyle like no one else is living. Sometimes we have to make expense cuts right now, and sometimes we have to contract in order to expand. So I just want to leave you with that thought today. I wish you all great success, and I just encourage all of you to go out there and take massive action today to accomplish your dreams. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Heather. That was awesome. Thanks so much for your insight. And if you want to get more of Heather's insight, you actually want somebody experienced who has built multiple businesses and has been successful as an entrepreneur, go to howtoquitworking.com/coaching and reach out to Heather and schedule your complimentary coaching session with Heather where she is going to be there and available to escort you, shepherd you, help you through the process of quitting your job and starting a business. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the How to Quit Working Show. I will see you next time when we're going to talk to another amazing person just like you who's quit their job and started a business.
Thanks for joining us on the How to Quit Working Show. Tune in next time when we'll talk to another amazing person just like you who is now living the ultimate life of freedom and doing it on their terms. If you want to learn how to quit working and get these episodes delivered directly to you, visit howtoquitworkingshow.com.